Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the work session for November 2nd, 2022 of the Laurel School Board. Ms. Conrad, will you please do a quick roll call?
Mr. Dick?
Here.
Mr. Renzo? Here. Mr. Hammerson?
Here.
Mr. Kirkwood?
Here.
Mr. McGee?
Here.
Either Mr. Nemo or Mr. Parker.
Yeah, Mr. Parker's dialing in.
Okay? That's Mr. Redwood.
Here. Let me make sure he got. Yeah. Okay. Recognition of guests. Thank you for joining. Item number E will be recognition of meetings next week on October 5th, 2022 from 6:20 to 6:55 an executive session for personnel. Then from 7 to 7:36 p.m. board work session. October 12th, 6:35 to 6:58 executive session for personnel. 7:02 to 7:19 regular board meeting. And then at 7:20 to 7:33 for another executive personnel meeting. Next week, we'll be having the Pride and Promise. Mr. Rich?
Yes, so we have a student who has completed their Eagle Scout, and it's the high school's turn, correct? So Mark will be doing that presentation for that young man.
Okay. We also have a presentation from the Newcastle Public Library.
Yeah.
On the 9th, yep. Do we have any reports from standing committees?
I just want to thank Ed for the extra handicap parking, or Joe, whoever did that. Out back, appreciate it.
Okay. We'll move.
Enough for this time. We'll get there. And I checked. I don't know if the word got out, but everybody was parked there. Should have been there, because I know that's an issue too. People not having handicaps. Last 2 times I checked, it was right.
Okay, good.
Maybe me complaining got out there.
You saw it.
We'll see. We still got out front.
Item number 4, administrative reports. Any?
Yes.
Transportation, we had a meeting, 10:13, about students on the buses and behaviors and trying to get the drivers to understand how to drive safely and try to keep distractions down and not have any problems. And a week later, the principals come down to and found ways of communicating with them to try to help them. Times are changing. Some of the kids are a little bit more rowdy than what they used to be. None of them are bad. I think they're just all just, I don't know, having a good time on school.
Well, Dan and I met, the elementary admin met with K-6 on data, and the primary teachers, again, were talking about behavioral gaps. I mean, we know what a second grader and a first grader, kindergartner should be, but they're not there, and some of them haven't been in preschool and whatnot. So, Bobby Lynn, you see that at Seneca Valley, kindergartners who maybe aren't at the behavioral level that you're accustomed to?
They don't know how to sit on the bus.
Doing general maintenance and inspections on all the vehicles, and also getting the trucks ready for, you know, we had a surprise snowstorm. We bought this whole place one day already. Yeah, about 3 inches here.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
There was none in Shenango.
Well, Mr. Rich texted me that morning because one school had already been late something.
Yeah. Butchie, the other Butchie.
Yeah.
But we had probably 3 inches here.
Yeah.
You never shoveling snow off the side. It's pretty crazy. But it was so warm, I knew we'd be fine. It just felt as fast as we were plowing it, but it was, we had to plow it with so much snow. It was crazy. Big slush mess once we started plowing. But we Right.
One question, Joe. We had trouble with the buses rusting a few years ago.
Rusting?
Yeah. And I had a guy, he does undercoating, and he was asking, I assume we're doing that ourselves as you're doing, or,
We've been sending them out to get undercoated for the last 3 years.
oh, okay.
Brown rust proof.
Is that West Middlesex?
Yes.
That's where everybody takes the fire trucks and everything?
Everybody's taking everything up there. I think that's a whole bus for like $285. Wow, that's a lot. I mean, it's cheap, but I mean, that's a lot of material on a big bus. Cars and pickup trucks are like 150, so
What's he putting on?
it's crown rust proofing. It's its own product, and it's a franchise product.
That's about half what I say.
Yeah, but in Crown, if you do it from brand new, they'll guarantee it will not rust.
They steam clean them the day before or something, and
They try to.
Okay.
good outfit. It's a good one there.
It's a big operation up there.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
We recently had both heaters in the greenhouse went down. We scrambled to get them back online with the poinsettias getting ready for Christmas. We didn't want to kill them. We had some unit events go bad recently. 417 at the elementary, we had a motor transformer and a coupling went bad. All the air filters are done, replaced in all the gyms. Both schools are roughly halfway done. We've been off and on, so hopefully we can stick with them through years and go forward to finish them up. We had a motor go bad on the adjustable backboards at the elementary. We had some problems getting the parts in for that, but them backboards lower for the kids, pretty nice setup, but finally got them replaced. The health inspector is in also. They did a inspection at the elementary, was a clean bill. The high school, when he came here, the ladies were changing his shift, and a light bulb went out, and he wrote us up for it. So it wasn't nothing, he replaced it, but he still wrote us up.
They gotta do something.
But the ladies definitely bust their hump in there, so, we got to give them hats off to them ladies. They work hard in there.
Any questions for Ed? Nicole?
We've had what I feel is more than usual, kids moving in or out, or the state now how they are claiming homeless students. We've had more students than not. So just arranging placements, transportation, working with CYS and different foster agencies for students and their needs that they might have. This has been keeping me busy. We had IST this month, academic and behavior interventions. Seems to be going really, really well. Kelly staff still need to be pulled because lack of subs occasionally. So interventions, do get interrupted at times, but we're doing the best that we can there. School-wide, like Joe had said, the focus from our data was bus behavior. So we met with Joe and the bus drivers and come up with a bus incentive. The kids are going to get ice cream every Friday now at lunchtime if they've had good bus behavior. So, and then progress reports are going out here in the next week.
So so now it's down to bribery.
Yeah. That's what school-wide is. You're good and we give you good stuff. We have 3 hoverboards to give away this year. I'm excited about it. I'm waiting for Mr. Swerbley to ride around in the hallways. I told him I'd even give him a helmet.
There's consequences where the kids, the parents have to take them to school.
Yeah, I know.
This is an unstructured situation,
I know. I understand.
so they continue. Now, what about the kids that they drop off?
Oh, yeah,
Are they having, are they?
We included, so Mrs.
Mrs. Dean.
Dean handles those kids in the cafeteria to get picked up, so she's able, so they earn tickets if they're on good behavior from the bus drivers, and they will come from the bus.
But the
It's not
reason,
every
like
single
I had
kid.
said though, is what we had told Mrs. Dean and those kids though too was, we don't get write-ups and we don't have the behavior problems that we have been having on the buses. Like the number was really large the last month of bus referrals that we had. So that's why we focused specifically just this month on the buses. But we have the green cards that we still do, so at any time, kids can earn rewards for those green cards, but this was just try to curb bus behavior.
Now, what about kids that have like a split home and how are we mitigating drop-offs if it's here or there, if they have
So there's,
a babysitter that they, is there like a limit or?
they get one stop in the morning and one drop off. If there's a case like that, we'll honor any court documentation of whoever has custody and make that work. If they want to change it to go to a babysitter all year, they can make that change at the beginning of the year. They can make the change, but once it's made, that's one stop.
I did have one question. I see our speech therapist is gonna be on leave for a couple months. I've already got one phone call. Are you gonna have a plan?
Yes, just talk to Mr. Rich, we're posting.
So we're gonna post and see what we get, but also the IU has contracted services available. I'm forgetting the other vendor.
Capable
Capable
kids
Kids.
who we went through, in the spring, so they're available too. But, because of her length of being out, we were going to try to do a long-term sub.
Speech
If we could.
pathology, someone needing hours to gain, and she could still,
So like a student doesn't quite have their Cs yet, they call it, it needs supervision.
Mike, is that you?
Mrs. Jacobs said that she would supervise them while she's out. If we couldn't find anyone and we needed to get a student, she would still supervise their work. So, yes, Mr. Rich and I just met on that, and the post should be going out any second. And Mrs. Jacobs is already posting it on her end,
Let it reflect.
to all the speech
Mr.
people.
Parker's
So,
on the other phone.
So is Mr. Memo.
fingers crossed,
What's that?
we get someone.
The memo's off.
We got Mr. Newman.
Have you heard good things? I've heard wonderful things so far, so.
Oh, yeah, I haven't had any complaints about her. The complaint was while she's gone,
We're gonna replace, yes, we
get
have
back to the long-term stuff, so.
all intentions to.
But I'm glad you guys are on.
Any additional questions? Nicole? Dan?
Right, so we brought our, benchmark data, our first round of data here for you guys. So what I did in each of my layouts,
Real quick, Dan, can you explain a benchmark versus a diagnostic? What are we measuring?
so for our benchmarks, we're measuring where the kids should be at the end of that grade. So we expect them to be lower at the beginning of the year because they've been taught the material. Diagnostic, which we did at the beginning of the year, prior to at the very start, gives us more of a grade level equivalent. Like, are the kids on grade level close to grade level behind grade level? So what I laid out for you here is this year's benchmarking for each grade level, and then I compared it to last year's benchmark. So it's not the same kids, but it tells us where did that grade level start at last year, where they starting at this year. So if we look at the K-2 first, start with kindergarten, for literacy and numeracy, and again, the kindergarten kids come to us, we don't know, we're not sure necessarily what preschool they've had, but once they come to us, we assess that and we move from there. Something we talked about earlier, behaviors. We seem to be getting more behaviors. So the first thing we have to teach the kids is how to do school. And as we do that, we couple that with the academics. So as you can see, this grade level this year came to us with a few more kids at risk than last year's class did. So we're looking at that, and we've been building, we're through for the first 9 weeks, so we've got a pretty good handle. We still have some kids we're still working with on behaviors, but we're getting there. Looking at first grade's in a pretty good place. For the most part, you're looking at high risk, we want those numbers to be lower and want the low risk to be higher. So in first grade, our kids this year are starting off better than our first graders did last year. So that's a plus to us. Because if you look back to kindergarten, you can see they gained a lot of ground from the start of the school year. So they're closer to being where they need to be. Second grade, same thing. Kids starting off very similar, a little bit further ahead than they did last year. So, and as you know, for K-2 is our Title I interventions. So we use this data to qualify kids for Title I. And this year, at Title I, we're doing just a little bit differently. We're targeting specific skills. Looking at the research and, looking at teaching reading or early numeracy, you have to get those basic skills mastered. And you build those like building blocks getting you to where you need to be as far as your literacy level and numeracy. That's K to 2. Any questions on K to 2?
And so,
Yes, 81.
And that's also Missy Armstrong's new assignment, or return to previous assignment.
Yes, yes. She started there way back when, and she's back there again. Now, if you're looking at grades 3 through 6, again, benchmark, this is our study island benchmark testing. So again, I looked at like where did last year's third grade start at compared to where this year's third grade start at. And again, you can see actually, if you're looking at third grade, we're starting a lot further ahead this year than we did last year, which is actually very promising considering the fact that last year's third grade by the end of the year ended up at the top of the county again. So we're starting a little bit further ahead, so we're excited about that. Fourth grade starting pretty close to where they were, which is good. We know, like I said, we don't expect that many kids to be at proficient level already considering it's the end of the year testing. Fifth grade, same thought process, they're pretty close. If you're looking at the numbers, they're very similar. And then looking at sixth grade, we're actually starting a little further ahead than we did. So we're excited about that. It's shown us that we're closing the gap, that, you know, we're building from year to year, and we're really pushing forward. I'm excited about the gains we made last year, and I look forward to the gains we're going to make this year. Any questions?
what happened with, math this year?
As far as,
It looks like 32% are at high risk, and if I'm reading this right, they would be the numeracy of the fall 21, 22,
which grade level?
second grade.
I'm not necessarily sure where, you know, why that grade level started off lower in numeracy. I will say, so that group of kids, that has been our high-risk group of kids that we've been targeting.
Okay,
So their reading was very, very low last year.
okay,
So we did load up on their reading interventions.
gotcha.
But in talking to the teachers, this, even though that's hitting a high risk, they said the kids are picking up the concepts,
Okay.
but there's holes.
Okay. Would this be the kids that were in kindergarten?
For our very
This
first
is
shutdown.
our
Got it.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is,
Doesn't that just anger you in your stomach when you say
Yeah,
that?
it's terrible.
It's garbage, absolute garbage, and it's unforgivable.
Mhm. That's a shame.
Second.
Any additional questions for Dan? Mark?
At the high school, we did both the diagnostic and benchmark. I provided our benchmark data because that gives us our best indication of how we get our proficiency at the end of the school year. So we use Study Island for our benchmarking. We use HMH, which is our series for both literature and math, at the high school for our diagnostic. But the data is in front of you on the screen. So high school Keystone literature, current 10th graders, 50 of 73 kids were proficient on their first benchmark, so about 68% coming out of the gate. And I know they've had 3 years with this new series, so pretty excited there. Generally, we're low 80s, 78, 80, 84, our normal proficiency. Keystone biology, 38 of 97 students proficient or better, 39%. Generally, we're in the high 70s, low 80s with that also. So obviously some room to grow there. Algebra, which was a big sticking point for us last year, much better to start out. 41 of 77 students predicted to be proficient or better, so about 53%, and we were at 52% last year on our team. So, I know our middle school kids, if I broke that down to middle school and high school, we're in the 70% proficient for our 7th and 8th graders who are taking algebra. And we're much lower than that for our 9th, 10th, and 11th graders who are taking algebra. So, which, again, that's generally how it goes when you have your best and your brightest taking it at early, that accelerated track. And then as you work through students who are, you know, not as excited about math, it's a little harder to get them motivated. Next, PSSA, Math 7. Again, historically has been a tough tested area for us. 9 of 86 students predicted to be proficient or better. 10% predicted currently. ELA 7, 31 of 86, 36% proficiency currently right now. Generally, we're about double both of those once we get to the end of the school year. Math 8, 9 of 77 students predicted to be proficient or better. That's 12% proficient. ELA 8, 24 of 77 students predicted to be proficient or better, 31%. And then science, which we did really well last year. Again, our strongest one thus far, 29 of 77 students predicted to be proficient or better than that. So 38%.
What I'd like everyone to keep in mind is this slide compared to when we report out next September. So these are the kids who the test was taken out. This is what we would have. So typically, our biology has been as high as 88, 90%, typically in the high 70s. Literature has been in the mid to high 80s. So this is where they are, and if they teach them, let's see how much better they get, right?
Any additional questions?
I have another question, because it also is phone calls I've got with Shirley. Have we got that worked out, and is there still a Florida trip planned, or is that? Okay.
Yeah, so last we spoke to, we have a new cheerleading advisor in place, talking with Mr. Law. They've been doing, they have brought in some additional people to help with practice, do some different stunting and things. So, and then they reached out, they just advertised for their sport and cheer clinic, which will be coming up here pretty quickly. So their goal was to be ready to hopefully earn a bid to go to Florida this year.
Okay, good.
So that's kind of like that's not accurate.
Oh,
I believe Florida was off, weeks ago.
okay.
They weren't gonna make the opportunity to have the bid, through the time. I wasn't here to talk about cheer.
Right.
As soon as it got brought up, the intermittent teacher coach is absent this week. I believe she's, on vacation or some other sort. While we're on the subject, I just asked if we can keep up on this cheer group.
Maybe I could get clear.
If they, get the bid was very soon. They still, the best knowledge don't have a legitimate routine or I went to preview night for cheer on, last Thursday, I believe, before the bonfire, and, it wasn't much of a preview. I was surprised they had it, to be honest, because they just weren't there. I really personally believe that this year should be about fun, because it's not gonna be about going to Florida or Whitfield. I think it's very slim. They're gonna have, the best amount of which one competition before Whitfield competition will be. I think it takes a really strong group to push through that, and I hope they can, but I think it's gonna be tough. And like I said, her week off could have been planned for 3 months. I don't know anything about that, but when our days are so few and hard,
I'll give it Kenny and maybe some things ironed out.
yeah,
I'll
like
give it
I
that
said,
detail on it.
I believe she put it out to the girls, like, one by the, we don't have a routine around music, so the bid would be very hard to get, that we wouldn't have it before.
Yeah, 'cause I know she'd asked us about the ability to do that with the cheer clinic and the different things.
Yeah, so they are gonna have their Spartan Classic or whatever on Sunday coming up. They decided to push through that just so that they can maintain that, hopefully, through the years future. But that's actually the first time they'll perform. And, typically that's not the case.
Right.
To be continued.
More details next Wednesday.
And I do want to thank you again, Mark, for getting the fentanyl thing. I thought the program went over pretty good. So.
It was pretty well received.
Yeah, a lot of good comments from the community. So, any additional questions for Mark? Nicole?
So, actually, I was gonna talk about the fentanyl, assembly that we had. So that was very well received. It was grades 7 through 12 that were there. We also had at our high school, our National Honor Society induction ceremony. That was held on October 19th. We inducted 17 juniors and seniors, 15 juniors, 2 seniors, added to the 17 existing, members, since there's a total of 34 members in NHS right now. We held our senior Halloween dance. They had a little bit more than half of the senior class. There was
currently there's like 93 students, there's a little over 50 that was there, and, very interesting costumes that came through. Elementary, we had, our Title I night, talking to dance, is, a little bit newer to this. It was very well received. We did not have a single empty seat in the library. So parents, what was promising was that parents were there. They were very attentive. They were grabbing information and having some good conversation with the title teachers that were there. I actually attended PTO because I was very eager to get more involved with them to kind of bridge that gap. We have an amazing PTO. I don't think I need to say much about that, but I really wanted to thank them for the way that they're making the elementary seem so welcoming. They've done a nice job decorating the elementary for back to school and fall. I have observations and attendance listed here. I have completed all my formal observations in person in the elementary and high school. Attendance, I've been working on issuing the 3-day and 6-day unexcused absence letters, trying to contact parents. If I see that their students are out for a while, I'm making personal phone calls to them, trying to get them back in, see what we can do for them. I've conducted a few student attendance improvement meetings with them in both the elementary and the high school, and very unfortunately having to take some people to truancy. I was there today for it, and I have support next week too.
Do you know or have a percentage, high school versus elementary? That's an issue.
I do. We're pretty much where we were last year, better actually, because of we're not dealing with that, the COVID part. The biggest challenge is when people are absent, hunting them down for excuses and trying to get the excuses. High school, they just tend to lose them or not bring them in. Elementary, teachers have to go search in their backpacks. But I do have a breakdown of the monthly averages that I can provide you. Is there an online system that parents can use to do an excuse, like submit it online? I didn't know if there's capability. We don't, but I do have some parents that, because their students not as reliable, I do let them email me their excuse, and then I forward it to the secretaries. They print them and put them in Alma. But what's nice is with Alma, the parents can get on and check to see if it's excused or unexcused. One of the things I did establish this year or put into routine is at the high school, if you're absent, we push out a notice to the family, a text message or something. I started that at the elementary too. So now they get it in both buildings. And it's just a reminder, if your student's absent today, please remember to bring in an excuse or a medical excuse, because we will only accept 10 parental excuses in the school year.
Any additional questions for Nicole?
I did one remark on the fentanyl program. One speaker asked students, how many of you have had family members or friends whose fentanyl has affected their life? And there was over half. It looked like almost 2/3 of these students raised their hand. I'm not naive, but I was a little bit shocked. I was real surprised. Okay.
What grade is that for the high school? That high school?
Mr. Lee?
Much as I've been stating the past couple months, PIMS has dominated the majority of my time. Happy to say that we successfully completed all state report submissions for the month of October, and those are some of our most important submissions we'll have all year. In addition, I spent time configuring and updating the curriculum hub prepare for submission to the UBD creator, David Fack, and that's a pretty big deal. He's the one who came up with the concept, so we made certain that the hub was in good condition and had all the appropriate resources embedded. Lastly, just a quick report, we had, and this was actually last week, I didn't look at this week's data, I'm sorry to add, but we had 125 tickets, first response time was 7 hours, 38 minutes, and then ticket close time 3 hours. Keep in mind, that's going to fluctuate depending on the level of the complexity of the problem that we're trying to resolve.
And does the response time take in work hours or just a 24-hour clock?
It's just a 24-hour clock.
That's what I figured.
It's a free version.
Yeah, okay, well, that's why I asked. Okay,
Any questions?
any questions, yeah?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Ms. Conrad?
A couple things, in the information report is a copy of this, report that Carrie put together called Thank a Farmer Day and Preferred PA Day, and she submitted this to an organization that's offering a $500 grant if we are chosen. So, I don't know when we'll know, but she submitted that earlier this week, so, thank you for that. This morning I received, an email from our electricity consortium, and I added that to the as a whole. There's information contained in the motion they provide in plain what they're doing. Basically, they're asking if we will approve a 3-year extension to our electricity consortium so they can go out and start shopping for rates now. So, I didn't think that would be that.
Do we know what the rate is before we agree to this, or?
So, because we're part of the I handle that for us and they can.
But all we're agreeing to is to the search. I think that's part of the question, right? Right now, you're just agreeing to the search.
Yeah, so right now it doesn't expire until January 24th. So by agreeing to this extension, I will let them search for the next person. Try to find better rates for the next.
But it does not lock us into
I
that.
don't believe.
Okay,
That's not how it was.
explain.
And then at your seat, I put a, well, let me back up. Friday, I received draft financial statements from our auditor for last year's audit. And, I went right to work on our financial report due every year, due by the end of November. Based on the amount of time they take, I like to get going on that, right? So my intention is to take the data and put it into our data summary. I know everyone likes to see it. We don't have that time, so. What I do have are a couple of reports that are a lot easier and more streamlined use of this together. On this page, there is a history of our budget actuals, and on the back of that is a fund balance. I just summarized briefly what went on. So we nearly hit our budgeted expenditure number, almost exactly. So we were under our budgeted expenditures by $50,000, which is on a $20 million budget. That's pretty good. However, on the revenue side, we did bring in more revenue than we budgeted. But that's where we did take a big hit in our OPEB, investment earnings, which is our, it's a trust that we have for post-employment benefits. I don't know the history of when that was begun, but it's been in place for some time. Last year, we got a huge bump in interest earnings. This year, we went in $226,000. Deficit in our investment earnings. However, we did still bring in $57,000 more in real estate taxes than our budget, $140,000 in earned income. And I continued a battle, I'm going to call it, with the IRS that has been going on since before I started. There were some things that they owed us back, and we finally got all that sorted out at some point during last year, and all these dates for January. And they returned our $136,000. So that was nice, a nice little bump, and we had it in 2019. So it was a long process. I don't know exactly how they got the extra payments, but I'm assuming something was duplicated. And it was caught, but you can get back from them. So at the bottom of the history of budget actuals, our budgeted, the first three columns are budgeted, the next three columns are our actuals. And we had budgeted a deficit of $996,000. And thankfully, we were under that, not as much as I would have liked to be, but our actual deficit is $710,000, which is $285,000 better than we expected to be, however, still, of course, negative. So, like I said, I'm going to get to work on getting that format into my budget summary. And hopefully not today, So that's all I have, if you have any questions. And to answer them, I'll be.
Any additional questions for Ms. Conrad?
As always.
Thanks, Sean. Mr. Rich?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Let's see. Item number 5, questions or comments from the floor relative to the agenda? No? Okay. Next week, we'll be doing the approval of the minutes for November 2nd, or excuse me, for October 12th, the regular board meeting minutes. We'll also have the treasurer's report, the investment report, and then our bill listings. Any of those items we need to discuss? Okay. We'll then move to item number 9, which is personnel, in which we'll approve and accept the following retirements and resignations. Ms. Paula Caldy, Mr. Gary Forbes. Any questions on that? We'll then move to the head junior high school girls basketball coach.
This was an oversight, by several of us, that, Mr. Martintino did do the 8th grade, Mr. Locke did the 7th grade, we appointed Mr. Locke August maybe, but, never did Mr. Martintino, but he did actually coach all season, so, with the recognition, this is an email over. He is not going to take it.
Okay. Any questions? We will also have the 8th grade trip co-advisors. So approve Sean DeBase as 8th grade trip co-advisor for 22-23 school year at a rate of $1,000 as established by the CBA. We'll also have a leave of absence. So approve the intermittent FMLA leave of absence for Emily Gardner beginning October 19th and concluding 60 days. We'll also have a leave of absence for Nicole Scott for disability leave, which will begin on February 6th, 2023, concluding on June 3rd, 2023. A leave of absence. This one will be unpaid for Amber Jacobs, beginning on or about March 6th and on or about May 19th. A leave of absence for FMLA for Gary Forbes.
Jim,
No, wait a minute. Go ahead.
I just had a question about disability, like for disability pay.
Yeah.
Do we do full or do we do like 60% like a workers' comp?
There is no disability.
There is no disability. Okay, I mean, it's just
They
unpaid.
have to take it,
They can use that. Okay.
unless they have an outside college.
So, help me understand. Gary Forbes is retiring on January 19th. Okay.
Are we able to, do we need to post for that job?
Yes.
Okay.
Does that mean we can't post until retirement?
No, I mean, if you, yes, once you accept his notice to retire, I mean, you have every right to say when we bring in the next person. It would be at a minimal cost to overlap, if you will.
Right.
Because without getting into too much specifics on Gary, it'd be a minimal cost to still have Gary with us as an employee and bring in the new person. So what we would like to do also too is, we don't know the candidate pool that we might get, right? So let's do a posting as soon as we can, see what the candidate pool is, you know, do we proceed with that candidate pool, repost, I don't know. So Ed and I have talked about this. I know Ed would like it posted as soon as possible. Is that accurate?
I would. We're shorthanded now, and being without in person, it'd be great to move, tomorrow we can start posting and advertising. But if our normal, I'm not looking to change your procedures, of normally you'd approve it next week, do it this week. Maybe we can have candidates by December, and see something.
Regardless, I think that would be the goal.
Because you're only gonna have it back for 1 week, right? And then it's done.
He's not coming back. He's already done. He left.
The dates don't add up then, do they? Retirement, January 19th, leave of absence is up January 13th.
So it ends, the FMLA ends on January 13th, and the retirement is 6 days later, so.
There is a clause in their contract.
Yes.
Okay.
The FMLA leave ends before his retirement.
Okay.
Must be a special date. He chose that date, and the reasoning of it, but
Okay.
Okay. Any additional questions? Yeah. We'll also be looking at a cafeteria breakfast position for Ms. Sherry Ketzer. 15 hours per week at a rate of $11.25 per hour, effective November 10th. Instructional personal care aide, Cheyenne Chapman, $10 an hour, effective December 12th, pending receipt of required documentation and clearances. Superintendent evaluation. Superintendent contract. Any questions on those before I move? Next page. Then we'll move to professional development workshops and seminars for staff. And then additions to the non-instructional substitute listing. Item number 10 will be committee of the whole, approving the 8th grade Gettysburg trip. This trip, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think it's pretty cool they're going to Gettysburg, this year. It's kind of like a change we've seen in the past.
I think you have like 77 students in 8th grade, is that correct? And only 45 report?
So it's not a required trip.
I
People want
understand
to sign
that.
up to go, yeah.
Only 45.
But keep in mind, the trip's in May. When's the deadline for signups?
Run into a lot of different things that weekend, and there's travel baseball, we got somebody on that day.
Well, that's the reason.
So that everybody has reasons of why they don't, why it's not. When it originally started, I believe it was a class trip and everybody went on a class trip. Over the years, whether it be, at one point it was cost, but we changed the trips and now it's not cost anymore.
Well, you know, once baseball starts, Jeff, the world stops.
Right.
And we play baseball in the worst weather.
Mr. Frangel, were they staying overnight in Gettysburg?
Yeah, they take a bus out in the morning, spend the day down there, do a tour, have a couple meals.
Nicole will be the instructor on that trip.
Mr. Doros must have did a great job selling it, because I was out in the hallway between periods, and I heard this one kid telling his friend, "You gotta go on the trip, it's great, you get breakfast, at lunch."
Was this kid's name Justin?
Probably.
Yeah, that's right.
And I said, well, you sold everything but the educational.
I just pray for nice weather. It rained last year.
Oh, yeah.
But we had fun anyway. We had a good time.
Next week, we'll also be adopting the policy in the second reading for approval of 805.2, which is school security and personnel, as well as 913, non-school organizational groups and individuals. We'll also have wrestling requests for building rental. So approve the request for Laurel Wrestling Boosters for the district to pay for half of the cost for renting the space at the Lawrence County Fair.
I only got it done.
The rental fee is $1,000 a month for December, January, and February, for a total of $3,000. Our portion would be $1,500 of that.
Thought that might make you happy.
So I'm glad they got something.
Right.
So
When we get somebody
will
hurt
that
somewhere.
be the junior high varsity and the youth?
No, the varsity will still be here. There'll be a lot of our other programs, our girls wrestling, junior high, youth, allow them to use more mat time, so they can come in. So they'll still have access to here, but a lot of it will be happening over there.
The mats they have, do they stay there?
They have multiple mats, they'll have stuff over there, and they'll still have a mat.
No.
We used to do this years ago out of Princeton, and then, last year they tried to utilize the elementary gym, and it caused a pretty big conflict with elementary basketball. So it was just trying to find the space, and, originally the fairgrounds was gonna be $3,000 a month, but I know Mr. Stivers worked with the fair board, and they gave us a pretty good deal, making it $3,000 total, which the boosters then decided to do.
We did use the fair for a while.
Years ago.
Before we did the wrestling thing, and it was rough, but it's, as long as they have mats, we were carrying mats back.
Right.
So that's good.
I think too, right now we have essentially two locations, you know, and they'll probably be going on at the same time and just assigning who's where, so.
The program is big now too.
Right.
Yeah.
It's,
You know how many kids are involved in this? Well, you don't know about these. I don't know about
There's a
these.
lot.
youth carries about,
If you ever come up to that event, they have a.
Right.
youth carries about 70 youth wrestlers, and at least 50 of them are Laurel kids in all those little ages and whatnot. But, you gotta give a shout out, first of all, to Kevin Carmichael. He's really built a regional program. And another thing that I've seen in change in culture, I'm going to give a shout out to Brian Cooper and Ryan Miles, who provided a transition really from football to wrestling. And I think that's been instrumental because my first year in 16-17, there were more varsity wrestlers from Wilmington than there were from Laurel. So
That was the only reason we took Wilmington wrestlers. We had too many empty classes.
Right. So that's it. And have any of you gone to a home meet? I mean, we only do like 2 or 3 home meets with that light and, you know, mono down there, and the gym's got a good crowd and, you know, wrestling moms.
Yeah.
Bobby,
Go to a youth tournament and watch the wrestling moms on their knees next to the mat. They're louder than the coach. They might as well just take the chair. Turn them!
Any additional questions about the wrestling? Okay. We also be doing disposal of assets. So approve disposal of unused and outdated vocational, agricultural, industrial arts equipment by sealed bid. So a Dayton belt and disc sander, a Dayton 7x12 bandsaw, and a Dayton joiner.
I didn't think about this when we were talking about, were any of those funded with grants that we may have to, you know, keep a track of the tag and what we did with, I mean, we can get rid of them, don't get me wrong, but were all what?
They were all here for a very long time.
They were all here for a very long time.
They're well used.
I was gonna say, are they the blue ones?
Dom Iona may have been the principal at the time.
Right.
Okay.
We'll also be doing the electricity consortium, as Jen outlined, granting them a 3-year extension to go out and search for bids for power. Approval of field trips, approval of 6th grade band to Lawrence County Elementary All-Star Band practices at Mohawk, January 24th, 26th, from 4 to 6 p.m., January 27th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The concert will be held on January 27th, 2023 at 7 p.m. at Mohawk. Cost of district is $8 per student and one-way transportation to practice. Any questions on that? Item number 11 for our agenda. Is there any new business? Okay. Item 12, comments and questions from the floor relative to non-agenda items.
I was just gonna say, last week for senior week, the senior football players, you may have heard of how they did their jersey for a teacher. And last year they found out those jerseys because they don't have any straps to them, so they don't get tackled by the jersey. It was tough for the teachers to wear them. So the football boosters bought t-shirts to say Laurel Impact Teacher. The football players chose a teacher that had an impact on them. Last Thursday night, we had dinner for the teachers and the football team. The kids presented the teacher with a t-shirt and a thank you card. The teachers were Mr. Schellenberger, Mr. Wysocki, Mrs. Garner, Mrs. Clark, Mrs. Height, Mr. Allman, Mrs. Costello, Mr. Skirvitz, Mrs. Long, Mr. Walliser, Mrs. Santini, and Mr. Parsons from BOTAC.
So we had the elementary, we had the high school, and the CTC represented.
So from the elementary.
That's awesome. I want to add on to your shout out. I thought with that T-shirt, you know, that's something they can take. And our guy was beaming because we had a meeting that night. So he came right from the dinner to meeting, and he had that impact. I mean, just boosters are being commended for adding that event to our culture.
Yeah, that was great, Bob, to see that on Spartan Country. They showed all the pictures.
Good for the kids who are writing this thing.
All right. Well, if we don't have any other items, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.